Welcome to this webinar on the quantum state of the business in the Paris region. I am Thomas, my name is Thomas. I'm leading the Deeptech industry practice at Choose Paris region. For those of you who don't know Choose Paris region yet, we are the economic development agency of the Paris region. Our mission is to advise international companies looking to expand to Europe, and we provide all the resources you need to accelerate your business interests. That can be market insights, connections with the ecosystem, legal support, recruitment, and much more. Now, before we get to the agenda and introduce our speakers, let me go over a few practical tips to enjoy this moment. Before you ask, yes, this session is recorded. During the webinar, you can hear us, but we can't hear you. So communicate with us using the tabs on the right of your screen. The chat tab is to comment the discussion, say hello, for instance. You'll find useful links here too. And the question tab is obviously dedicated to your questions. We will have a Q&A session at the end, so write them down anytime. Now let's take a look at the agenda. The first 5 minutes will allow you to have an overview of the ecosystem of the quantum technologies in the Paris region. Then our guest speakers will join me for an exciting discussion, finished by a Q&A. But from now on, find out who they are. And starting with Eleni, senior researcher at Lab CNRS. Eleni, can you say a few words about you?
Sure. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Thomas. It's a pleasure to participate in this event. So I'm Eleni Diamanti, Director of Research at CNRS at the Lab Computer Science Lab of Sorbonne University in Paris. I'm also co-directing the Paris Center for Quantum Computing. And my personal research interests are more in the field of quantum communication and quantum cryptography, but obviously I'm very much involved in many topics in more global in quantum technologies, in particular, lots of regional, national, and European projects.
Thank you for being with us today. Excellent. Second speaker, Christophe from Quantonation, the only VC fund specialized in quantum technologies. Christophe, can you tell us a few words about you and Quantonation?
Yes, thanks for having me, Thomas. Yeah, I'm Christophe, so I'm a founding partner at Quantonation. We're indeed the first fund dedicated to quantum technologies. We're investing in early stage phases of the life of startups, and we made, since the end of 2018, 12 investments. So you've got the list on the screen here. So we're covering several sectors, which will not be too surprising. Quantum computing hardware, for example, with Pascal in France, Orca Computing, a spin-off from Oxford, and also Candela and Lab Quantique in Quebec. Quantum computing software, here with Multiverse, based in Spain and Canada, and also Qubit Pharmaceuticals out of France and the US. Quantum communications with KETS out of Bristol, QNect based in the US, and CryptoNext and post-quantum cryptography, and also quantum sensing with Qnami, and a last company category that's a little bit part, we call deep physics. So it's very close to quantum technologies, but not necessarily relying on a second generation quantum effects. So we made 12 investments and proceeding with further investments, obviously, all over the world. I'm also a founder at a not-for-profit based in France that's called the Lab Quantique, where we're really working and collaborating with like-minded entities like PCQC, for example, or GENCI in France, with support of the region, Paris region in particular, on promoting ecosystem activities to promote the development and the use of quantum technologies.
Thank you, Christophe. Excellent. So time for me to let the floor to Caroline. She's a COO at KETS Quantum Security. Thank you, Caroline, for being here.
Thank you. Thanks, Thomas. Thanks for inviting me along. I'm Caroline. I'm the COO of KETS, which means I look after all of our people, on our finances, on our projects. We're a startup company based in Bristol. We've been going now for around 4 years. We're primarily building secure communication systems with hardware, but looking at broader hardware and software solutions in the longer term. We're a team of 13 people now. We've got a couple of really key members not on that photograph, which of course is from 2019 and not the last year. We're very shortly moving some of our company into Paris, which is a really exciting thing to do, and that's why I guess Thomas has invited me here to share some of that journey with you.
Yes, of course. You received services from Choose Paris region recently, and you still have connections with my colleagues. Could you tell us what kind of helpful services do you remind?
Sure. Yeah. A combination of Choose Paris region and Business France actually have really helped us along the way. When you start off on this journey, you don't know what you don't know, and it's all quite complex. And you think actually it wouldn't be that different setting up a company in France as it is in the UK, but actually it is a little bit different, and you have to understand what that process is. So between Business France and Choose Paris region, you've taken us along the way, at every point sharing with us how to do it and who to go to for help when we do it. So I mean, I think for anyone who's coming from either the UK or elsewhere, kind of getting assistance through that process is super helpful. And that's some people at the start, but we already know and have been introduced to and met with people who will help us once we're physically on the ground in Paris as well. So it doesn't stop when we get there.
Okay, thank you for sharing this story. It's just the beginning of the story. You discovered an ecosystem during this journey, and that's what I'm going to introduce you to. So let's dive into this presentation of the Paris region. This start with some big figures about a region that probably not everybody know. Paris region offers a wealthy and dynamic economy at the heart of Europe. Paris region is a unique talent pool also in Europe, and it has the first concentration of R&D personnel and the highest concentration of qualified students. With 1,200 R&D labs every year, there is 20 billion euros invested in R&D, which is 3 times higher than the Greater London, and something like the Silicon Valley amount of investment. We will explain you why later. As an example, here is a view of the Paris Saclay campus, gathering a unique tech ecosystem with hundreds of R&D centers, 9 top universities, student residences, incubator, and so on. The Paris region is also a top business hub, actually Europe's highest concentration of Fortune 500 corporations, among which you are going to find potential customers for your disruptive technologies in the energy, banking, aerospace, and so many industries. For you today, just a short list of end users of quantum technologies today. There are more than 8,000 startups in more than 600 innovation centers. It's really a startup region. These innovation centers are incubators, co-working spaces. The one you see here is Station F, the largest startup campus in the world, with 1,000 startups under the same roof, spread into several incubators and accelerators. Caroline, you, KETS, had the chance to be in this Station F. So can you tell us a bit more about this experience?
Yeah, sure. We won a place on a program run by Thales, which is called Cyber at Station F. I think we were the only UK company in that cohort. It was a 9-month program where we could have a hot desk and sit in Station F, and we regularly did that. We were able to meet with some key people within Thales global business units. And out of that came some really, really interesting proof of concept projects that we are now doing with Thales, and also a collaboration with a French startup company, which is also one of Christophe Quantonation's portfolio companies, Cryptonext. So
Excellent.
lots and lots of opportunities that came out of that, and we were very lucky to be able to go there.
Oh, okay, thank you. It's time to dive deeper into the quantum physics academic world by sharing with you, first of all, an overview of the French ecosystem of quantum research labs. Because the Paris region concentrates 50% of them. And this is really a unique chance for any company willing to be close to this academic world to be in Paris, and especially in the Paris-Saclay area, but not only. I selected some big names, some really important ones, like in Paris, 2 different computer science research institutions, INRIA, gathering 700 researchers. It's really a top international fundamental and applied research center. And LIP6, they both, LIP6 that Eleni could present you further, they both excel in quantum algorithms, mostly. In Paris-Saclay, southwest of Paris, the CEA list with 800 researchers and the École Normale Supérieure with 400 researchers cover many aspects of the quantum computer research. And they work with Quantum Saclay of the Paris-Saclay University, led by Pascal Sénélard, jointly with the Institut d'Optique Paris Tech. This is an illustration of the different success of this Quantum Saclay cluster. That's also something I wanted to highlight. CIRTEC, DIM CIRTEC has been created because of this rich ecosystem. DIM means domain of major interest. DIMs are research programs funded by the Paris Regional Council. And CIRTEC is the largest European concentration of academic teams in the field of quantum technologies. Eleni, may I ask you to say a few words about this exceptional concentration, and what are the main research topics you can find at CIRTEC?
Of course. Thank you very much, Thomas. So I'm definitely confirming that the Paris region offers a big panorama of an overview of all the quantum technologies can offer, going from quantum computing to quantum sensing and quantum communication. So I wouldn't be able to point out a single one of these topics that is present only in Paris region. We have managed to create an ecosystem that offers talented students, PhD students, a research environment more globally in groups and research groups that span the whole spectrum of quantum technologies, with research groups that are on the forefront of their field worldwide. So this is important to say this, that it's really all these topics are covered. So in CIRTEC, in this regional project, we have very successfully managed to push this ecosystem even further. So what we have offered through CIRTEC is bringing together the research groups, offering PhD and postdoc scholarships, and also equipment grants, following, of course, a reviewing and application procedure. It has been extremely successful and very well received from the research technologies community in Paris, and has accelerated, I believe, tremendously lots of the topics that are covered by this network. So Deeptech, as it was not really including industrial presence, although the research groups in Deeptech, of course, have done collaborations with industry. And this is why there is new offers now, new regional projects like the ones that we're going to talk about a bit later, that explicitly are more industry-oriented. So I should really say that the Paris region has a history of extremely strong training in physics, mathematics, engineering, computer science, and so in all fields that come materials, but also fundamental, let's say, research that are at the heart of quantum technologies. And we feel this. We feel this when we recruit our students, that they are really extremely well trained. And so this is obviously extremely nice when you work in the academic community in Paris.
Yes, a kind of flexible. Sounds noisy. What happens? Can you turn your mic off, Christophe, maybe? Just a try. Okay. Hello? No, once again. Oh. So I muted your microphone. Yeah, okay. So maybe it was just a small problem. So it seems like the Deeptech is a kind of more flexible way to make projects happen into the academic world, and it's yes, it's managed at the regional level. It's one of the reasons why. Okay. Let's follow this description of the ecosystem by bringing you. There is a small sound problem. I also turn off your microphone, Eleni. Okay, so the ecosystem now is also very important. It's very important to have an overview of what happens in Paris Saclay. This is a map of the ICT and R&D ICT companies and R&D labs around Saclay. We will talk a lot about it today because this is really where all the different resources you need are concentrated. And there is at the heart of this ecosystem a cluster called Systematic, which gathers 800 companies and research labs, including large companies, and that funded more than 500 R&D projects for nearly 3 billion euros. It's really a place where all the optics and photonics specialists can find relevant support to have access to a network to prove their excellence. So there is also an initiative that is very important to highlight. I'm talking about quantum communication infrastructure of the Paris region. It's an initiative that is funded with 1 million euro, and it will be the first regional QCI or quantum communication network. So one of you could maybe say a few words about this and who is involved and why. It would be precious. Can you turn on your microphone? Yes, Eleni.
Maybe I can start, and then maybe Caroline can give her point of view as well. So yes, so this one is one of the two main initiatives supported by the region recently. So this quantum communication infrastructure brings together a number of academic labs, but mostly all the industrial partners in the region that are interested in the field of quantum communication and cryptography. It's a major initiative for us. The idea is to lay the ground for a test bed with over a real optical fiber network with deployed fibers by Orange, connected Paris and Saclay, that, as you've seen, are the main, the core centers of the quantum technologies activity in Paris, and that will be used as testbed for real-life demonstration of quantum cryptography and quantum communication, with systems going from simple, let's say, laboratory prototypes to commercial systems, and connecting university sites and industrial and telecom operators actors in the area. So our opinion, this initiative belongs to the general vision of a European quantum communication infrastructure that is under development at this point, the EuroQCI, and also the big European project, which is the pilot project of EuroQCI, which is called OpenQKID. And our lab, for example, participates in the management team of this. Exactly, yes, of this. Thanks, Thomas. Of this initiative. So all of this is so our testbed, our Paris testbed, belongs into these initiatives, and really has the vision to push forward the technology and be upgradable, in the sense that our hope is that we will be able to integrate in our testbed, in our infrastructure, more and more advanced technologies. So starting from systems like quantum key distribution, and going later progressively to quantum memory-based quantum repeater links, and testing all sorts of different applications and protocols, and eventually connecting quantum sensors and processors towards the vision of a real network of quantum devices.
Excellent.
So we're really excited with this project.
And KETS has a role in this project, now that KETS is a Paris-based company.
That's right, Thomas. KETS will be part of the early work in setting up and testing the quantum communications infrastructure in the Paris region. Ourselves, along with 3 other startups, Quandela, Cryptonext, and VeriCloud, will work together with some other larger companies to kick it off, I suppose.
Oh yes, excellent news, because it's important to have a practical use case, and it's one of them. So let's go on. So we talked about OpenQKID. Thank you, Eleni. It's part of a European initiative, and we will maybe underline, not enough, but we will say sometimes that really quantum technologies cannot be done only at the regional level. We work regularly, and we want to keep this collaboration going on with all the different European countries, and even on a global scale as well. And maybe the Lab Quantique, because you said, Christophe, that it's one of the initiatives you launched. Can you tell us a few words about this important element of the network?
Mm-hmm. So we started, this is a not-for-profit, so it's an association that we started last year, but actually operation started as early as 2018. I think we realized at some point that we needed to have a place, to build a network where people would talk about applications of quantum technologies, and not only about science. And I think that was revenue in 2018, so it took us a little bit of time to find out how to work, but we started with pre-COVID, it was not webinars, but now we have a lot of webinars, obviously, associating startups, give them a voice, capacity or capability to express themselves in front of an interested audience. Industry people who are interested in use cases in particular, and also academics. So we try to really have a combination of talents and build this network that is strong of 1,500 people now. So it's rather large, among one of the largest networks of individuals interested in these technologies in the world. So started with meetups and webinars, organized also hackathons. We have a new one coming probably next month in we co-organize with another association. It's called Quantics. It's an association of alumni of École Polytechnique. So we're having an event at the middle of next month that should be also very interesting. So webinars, I think, are really important important to disseminate the culture and the technology. We have co-organized conferences with BPI France. The last one last year, and was really a global conference about quantum computing for business with 800 participants from all over the world. Very international. So good way to attract interest and to share some news. And the last thing is an initiative. So I shared the link in the chat. It's called the PAC Quantum, that's funded by Paris region. That's very interesting. Something we started at the end of last year. Really, there the idea is, it's the next step. Let's say going further in the adoption of these technologies. So maybe some of you know, but so the European Union has decided to fund 2 machines, quantum computers based on neutral atoms technologies by a Paris startup called Pascal, one in Germany and one in France. So this project, this machine will be the core of at a facility called CEA-TGCC, south of Paris. We will use it to build around it an ecosystem of users and software developers, application developers as well. So the Lab Quantique has worked with Gency, which is an entity specialized in France, public company in management of high-performance computing machines, like this one here, Joliot-Curie. At the top, it's a very large one. So we're associated to Gency, and we're building proof of concept projects, so POCs, associating end users like EDF, for example, a large French utility, Pascal, the hardware developer, and eventually, in one of the cases, it's QCware or could be also Qubit Pharmaceuticals, so companies developing the software. Really, see the concept we want to deploy or to implement is really this concept of so-called co-design of the algorithms and the application associating the end user, the hardware and the software developers. And we will use the opportunity to have this resource, so Pascal machines, to do it, but of course also interested in bringing in other hardware and photonics, superconducting qubits, in order to develop as much the applications as possible for industry, large industry in particular, to implement these technologies as fast as possible and reach the quantum advantage.
Of course, yes, and we can see there that QCware, it's a US company that decided to open a subsidiary in France. It was a company eligible for this funding. So is there an open door for foreign companies willing to enter this grant, this process?
Yeah, I think absolutely, completely true. And we're talking to several currently that are interested in working with us in this initiative. Really, the idea is that for foreign companies, it's not just about opening an office and a PO box and having just a legal presence. It's really about developing connections, collaborative R&D. That's the case for QCware. Hired Jordanis Keranidis from CNRS in order to work there and develop the entity in France. Of course, others will be eligible as well, but really there has to be a legal entity, of course, but also the promise to hire and to develop the activity, not just a PO box, but real economic activity and also collaborations. But it's definitely open to foreign companies. Really, what we want to see is connections being built between the end users, the developers, let's say software developers, also hardware companies. It's really the triptych. Whether it's 2 or 3 companies, that depends, but I think we really need to have all these components.
Okay, and QCware and KETS Quantum opened the path for this initiative to foreign companies. These are just the first one. Some others are coming, and some of them that are part of your portfolio at Quantonation. So I think about Multiverse. I had the CTO recently on the phone, and he told me, yes, you can share the news. We are getting to Paris region for its R&D potential. And do you think they will have also a chance to compete in this kind of grant initiative?
Well, this one, for sure, yeah, and other grants as well. So there's with the French plan, probably we'll talk about that a bit later, the new French strategy, there are many opportunities. Again, I'd say the condition is really to build a significant economic activity, and that's really what it takes. So yeah, you don't have to be a Quantonation portfolio company to come to France, that's for sure. So it's open to everybody, of course. We'd like to have more companies. So we did our part in a way, but obviously very open to other companies to come and join the movement. There's one thing, maybe one slide you can show with campus. The facility we've opened in Massy. There's something I forgot to mention about the Lab Quantique. So we opened the first quantum co-working space, I think, in the world. It's in Massy, so it's very close to Saclay, but better connected through the train for the ones who know a little bit the area. So south of Paris, 25 minutes from Paris Center. It's not this building, this one is Atos, but we've opened a campus. It's co-working space for now, 500 meters square. So there's space available for hot desks in particular for companies who would like to have some seats and at a good price. There are companies there already, Candela and Pascal, quantum computing and component side, VeryCloud as well. KETS will be there. Multiverse as well, so it's also an opportunity to collaborate and to generate connections, and the space can be used also for as a showroom for the technologies if you want to do that. So it's very new. It's open last month. It's ready. There's some space available. Have to be a member of the association, obviously. Le Lab Quantique can discuss about conditions, but everybody's really welcome to join. I think it's great to have a core, a critical mass, I'd say, of quantum engineers at the same place. And we plan to work, and we're working also with Eleni and the Paris Center for Quantum Computing to open another structure of this kind in Paris downtown, probably as soon as next year, called La Maison du Quantique. So we're working on the project now. For those interested, might contact me because I can share also a document where we request, we ask questions about what's needed, the space, the conditions, etc. So we're there already. So we're collecting expressions of interest for now, and really the idea is that by next year we can have a space downtown Paris, probably larger as well, with DCQC and others, where we could open again a co-working space, and even more than that, maybe even shared labs for companies that would be interested.
Excellent. Many initiatives that will help structure this ecosystem. But before we go to the Q&A session, I wanted to have some minutes about the fundings, because one of the major news was the launch of this French National Quantum Plan. It's 1.8 billion euros plan over 5 years. And this initiative this plan includes a major investment in the quantum computer and its simulators. It also gives money to shorter-term research in quantum communication, sensors, and cryptography, without forgetting enabling technologies such as cryogenics. The education system is also one of the priority of this plan, so that we keep on having enough talents to work in this field. 5,000 additional specialized students are going to be trained in French universities and top engineering schools. Eleni, there was a question coming from the participant asking if this plan will include open tenders. It's a very good question. Can you?
It's a very good question. It's a little bit early.
Yes.
It's a little bit early to answer this question for the moment, although things are going to accelerate pretty fast. So the coordinator of the French National Quantum Plan has been appointed and will take official position in March. So this will accelerate things a lot. In the meanwhile, the topics that have opened within the plan for the moment are more the ones that concern fundamental research. So this is, which is a part, let's say, of the French quantum plan, an important part, but not the biggest. So for us, obviously, it's important for the academic sector. So we are busy with this, but this will obviously not lead directly to tenders. So I would say that the tenders will come in the second phase when more towards the systems that become into maturity level. In a few months, I would position it like this. I should also point out, in linking to what we were saying earlier, that the tenders, I believe, will be open, but it's important to understand that there will be a preference for French and European technologies. So I think it's important to point to the importance of participating actively in the ecosystem in Paris and in France in general, more globally in the French ecosystem, for industries that are coming here to participate in such a tender. I think it's natural to believe this, like Christophe said earlier. It's not enough to just have a PO box. It's really, you need to contribute to the ecosystem to be able to have access to such tenders. I believe we will have more news in a few months, basically.
Thank you. It's normal. It's a very brand new plan. So I wanted to give some benchmark by highlighting the fact that this plan is this big. It's a Eureka study that I found very useful. You can see that France is ready to deliver on the promise with 10% of the global investment in quantum research. Yes, 10%. It's even $1 out of 6 without China. Okay, China invests $10 billion, so it explains. So we discussed about many different topics. I would like to, in the field of fundings, say a few words about the exceptional conditions for tech startups who evolves in the French ecosystem. It's a slide about the research tax credit available in France, because average research costs after incentive in France is nearly half of the one in the US and 21% below the level in Germany. I really speak about the cost after research tax credit and subsidies. France is sometimes known as a paradise for research-intensive companies. So you're really welcome to learn more about this research tax credit and the different subsidies open to the tech companies. This is part of our job to help you decipher this numerous funding schemes and to prepare this for your business plan. Anybody, Eleni, Christophe, or Caroline, able to share some experience with this special French research tax credit?
Yeah, I think it's very important, obviously, and sometimes people translate that into cheap labor, which is not exactly the same thing. I think that's a benefit that you get as a company for very talented, high-quality people, in particular for young doctors. So the scheme is particularly attractive for young doctors or PhDs who get a first job after the PhD. So within the first 2 years, really the tax benefits, well, the benefits for the companies are really very important, and that makes a lot of sense to hire young postdocs. And I've seen that in all of the companies that we have in France taking the most benefit of these dispositions. But in general, I think it's a little bit of work. You need to have an accountant that's a little bit specialist, knows about the mechanism, but yeah, nothing too fancy on the other end. But that's something to factor into the business plan and to the projections when you come to France and you're thinking about having some activities here. So really, yeah, it's a no-brainer, I'd say, and that makes a very big difference, obviously.
Thank you, Christophe, for sharing this. And Eleni, you're fully aware of other subsidies for hiring PhDs, PhD students, to be exact.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
Can you tell us a bit more about the CIFRE
scheme? Yeah, there is the CIFRE scheme, so which is quite interesting for both researcher academic groups and industrial partners. So that's the CIFRE PhDs that are happening jointly between the company and the university, and they give very, very good preferential conditions for the salary of the PhD student to the industrial partner. So this is supported by the ANRT, the Agence Nationale, blah. So I can give you the full name. And so this is a scheme that we're using very frequently in academic labs whenever our research is directly linked to a company. So this gives typically very good conditions for the PhD student and both everybody involved, basically.
I will share a link on the chat as soon as I get it to explain what it is. But really, the thing to remind to keep in mind is to really make the most of this very generous conditions. I think it's time for us to jump into the Q&A session, because we had many questions from participants who prepared their questions. So I hope you can answer this. Our guest speakers are here to answer it. So I will pick up some of them. How close are quantum use cases being commercially viable? It's a question from a US venture capitalist called Anamika Ventures. It's a good question because we all look for the commercially viable use case. So is there any specific facts? I think about Pascal and its 100 qubit quantum computer. Christophe, what can you share with us?
Maybe I wouldn't say Pascal first. I would talk about quantum sensing, which is a very important sector. So something where there's a lot of activity in France and in Paris. So quantum sensing has already some clear advantage with respect to other technologies. So there are some startups that are already generating a significant revenue. So the quantum advantage for sensing is already there. For example, for imaging, for semiconductor surfaces, or atomic force microscopes using quantum, using NV centers in diamond in order to make this very small effects visible. And in the field of quantum computing, it's true that we are not at the commercial quantum advantage yet. So there's quantum supremacy. Many of you, I'm sure, have heard about, but which is rather, which doesn't have yet practical interest, let's say. So really on the edge of commercial quantum advantage through various technologies. Could be neutral atoms with a company called Pascal. They have reached a little bit more than 100 qubits now. We'll disclose more about the applications very soon, working in a mode that's called quantum simulation. It's a computer, but working in a specific mode, but also very soon other technologies. So quantum computing is a bit hard to say, probably 2-3 years until it really the spectrum of applications widens. It's going to be progressive. Definitely some applications and some will be accelerated faster. Well, faster, earlier than others, and it's going to come progressively. So within a couple of years, 2-3 years, and then more and more applications, as I see it, when the qubits are of better quality and there are more qubits, obviously, something that we'll need.
Thank you. Okay. Maybe a question for Eleni, a question coming from Russia, from the Russian Quantum Center. Thank you for this question. How many people work in France in the French quantum program? It's a good question. I don't want to have a precise figure, but what is the amount?
So I know, thankfully, a bit out of more or less the numbers for the CERTEC, which is basically the quantum community in the Paris region and Paris region, including center of Paris and Saclay. So it's around close to 1,000 researchers working in the field, more than 100 labs. And so a big number of academic groups. No, more than 100 academic groups in about 30 to 40 labs. This is the correct way in the universities. So this is about 50%, as Thomas said, of the overall community in France. So you should double the numbers basically to have more or less an idea of the community, the research community in France. So it's a very well-connected community. We have at the national level, so I should definitely stress this, that we have joint projects at the national level and conferences and colloquia. So it's a very complementary approach to quantum technologies. And yeah, I should definitely say that the regions and the researchers themselves are very well connected. So all of this would not happen with isolated initiatives. So we should position it at the national and European level. So this is important to say.
Yeah, thank you for reminding us about that. This said, there is another question from someone in France, but which is an excellent question. What is the status and dynamic of the Paris region cluster? I mean, the quantum ecosystem compared to others in Europe and in the world. Thanks to your international knowledge, Christophe, Eleni, and maybe Caroline, could you give us some piece of answer about that?
Yeah, I think Caroline can comment also about Bristol, which is actually very interesting, was one of the very first organized ecosystems in quantum. So I'd say France is catching up. Maybe it started a little bit later than other places like Toronto, for example, where the Creative Destruction Lab has been a driving force, has been a very important initiative for startups and gathering different communities on quantum topics. But currently in Europe, I see a couple of ecosystems that are very active. Let's say EU, definitely Paris, Grenoble, Delft in the Netherlands, Munich in Germany is connected to strong groups, academics, obviously. And in Spain, there's a couple of also very important centers. So I'd say Europe in general has catched up. UK has started earlier as well. Caroline can comment about that. But at this stage, really in the Paris, I think is running among the first in the world as a leading quantum ecosystem.
Thank you.
I should also stress, if I can, Thomas,
yes,
that we have a very complementary approach, a very strong synergy between lots of the centers, and especially the European Quantum Flagship was a very good opportunity to do this. So we have joint projects with Delft, we have joint projects with other centers, and between, of course, the French centers in Paris, Saclay, and Grenoble. So we see each other as an opportunity for synergy. So this is important.
Thank you. There is a question live from Julian van Velzen. It's a question about, I will start live. This question is, can you turn off your mic, please, Eleni? QCI is include large players. How do new players, especially large companies with complementary assets, join this initiative? What's the procedure? What's the person to contact? I think you could be one of them, but do you have any idea?
Is it for me? I guess for the Paris structure. So I would say that this project, as it is now, it has been supported by the Paris region. It's extremely good news if more actors want to join. So I would say the good way to proceed is to contact the coordinator of this initiative. In this particular case, I mean, I can be a contact point as well. This is easy, but the coordinator of particular of the Paris Region Quantum Communication Infrastructure Project is a colleague from Orange, and then go on from there and see how we can associate new groups into this initiative, initially as a partnership, and then later in the next stages within the quantum plan, for example, finding new ways of collaboration. So I would say that this is really the goal, to integrate new players.
Okay, thank you. Choose Paris Region can be also a door to be in contact with the Paris Regional Council funding the initiative. Philip White asked an excellent question. He was amazed by the number of new engineers and researchers planned in this quantum plan. It is easy to, it is over the 5 years, next years, and it's starting now. It has been decided before the announce of the plan. I mean, it's a long-term ambition, and this 5,000 new researchers and engineers will come out of universities and engineering schools over a 5 years period.
Mm-hmm. Maybe something I'd like to add to that. It's also important for startups who want to join and come to Paris. It's also a good way, being in Paris, to address the EU market. It's a good way to address the EU markets in general, but also attract EU talents. There's obviously mobility between countries within the EU, and it's really easy to hire, for example, Italian employees into a French company. For people who are not necessarily familiar, I mean, there's no problem with visas and anything like that. So being in Paris, opening a branch and being there in the ecosystem doesn't restrict you by far to French employees. Just to mention that, and the thing we were talking earlier about crédit d'impôt, for example, for young researchers or young doctors, that works also for EU doctors. PhDs can have give access to this kind of benefit. So really being in Paris, in the ecosystem, is a good way also to connect within the EU. That's quite important also for British companies, I think. Post-Brexit, unfortunately, but that's how it is.
So we have reached the end of this interesting discussion. Thank you all for your attention, and thank you to the speakers for their insights.